You're watching the History Fella channel. In this video we're looking at Operation Collar. Operation Collar was the code word for the first commando raid conducted by the British forces during the Second World War. The location selected for the raid was the Pas de Calais on the French coast. The British commandos had not long been formed and were not yet trained, and the operation was given to No. 11 Independent Company under the command of Major Ronnie Todd. The raid's objective was the reconnaissance of 4 locations and the capture of prisoners. Over the night of the 24th and 25th of June 1940, 115 men of No. 11 Independent Company carried out their operation, but they failed to gather any intelligence or damage German equipment. Their only success was in killing 2 German sentries. After the British Expeditionary Force had been evacuated from Dunkirk in 1940, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill called for a force to be assembled and equipped to inflict the casualties on Germans and bolster British morale. Churchill told the chiefs of staff to propose measures for an offensive against German-occupied Europe, and stated they must be prepared with specially trained troops of the Hunter class who can develop a reign of terror down the enemy coast. One staff officer, Lieutenant Colonel Dudley Clarke, had already submitted such a proposal to General Sir John Dill, the Chief of the Imperial General Staff. Dill, aware of Churchill's intentions, approved Clarke's proposal. The commandos came under the operational control of the Combined Operations Headquarters. The man initially selected as the commander was Admiral Sir Roger Keyes, a veteran of the Gallipoli campaign and the Zeebrugge raid in the First World War. In 1940, the call went out for volunteers from among the serving army soldiers within certain formations still in Britain, and men of the disbanded divisional independent companies originally raised from the territorial army divisions who had seen service in the Norwegian campaign. By the autumn of 1940, more than 2,000 men had volunteered for commando training. Under pressure from Winston Churchill to start raiding operations, Combined Operations Headquarters devised Operation Collar. The objective of the collar was to be reconnaissance of the French coast and to capture prisoners. The raid was to take place just 3 weeks after Operation Dynamo, the evacuation of the British Expeditionary Force from Dunkirk, and the French had just signed the second armistice at Compiègne with Germany on the 22nd of June 1940. The new British commandos were not yet adequately trained, and most units were short of troops. An independent company of those who were able to be absorbed into the commandos was selected. The unit chosen was No. 11 Independent Company, under the command of Major Ronnie Todd of the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders. No. 11 Company had been raised after the other independent companies on the 14th of June 1940. They were formed by asking for volunteers from the men already serving in other companies, and had an establishment of 25 officers and 350 other ranks. Having been selected to carry out the first commando raid on occupied France, No. 11 Independent Company was moved from its base in Scotland to the south coast British port of Southampton. On arrival, it conducted a number of exercises against local infantry battalion on the River Hamble. During the exercise, the men discovered the boats that they were being supplied with were not good enough to transport them across the English Channel. Having no other transport of their own, the RAF was approached for the use of 4 of its air-sea rescue boats based at Dover, Ramsgate and Newhaven. The raids would be carried out by 115 officers and other ranks, who were divided into 4 groups. Each group would land on one of the target beaches at Neuchâtel-Haguenau, Stella Plage, Berck and Le Touquet. They were to spend no more than 80 minutes ashore before returning to their boats. The RAF boats were not equipped for a mission like this and lacked exact navigation equipment, and the compasses were known to be unreliable. Crossing the channel, they also came to the notice of patrolling RAF aircraft, who, not being aware of their mission, came in close to investigate. At around 2 a.m. in the morning of the 24th of June 1940, the boats reached France and put their men ashore. The group that landed at Le Touquet had the Merlimont Plage Hotel as an objective. Intelligence had suggested that the Germans were using the hotel as a barracks. When the group reached the hotel, they discovered it was empty and the doors and windows boarded up. Unable to find another target, they returned to the beach, only to discover their boat had been put back out to sea. During the wait, 2 German sentries stumbled upon the group and were quietly bayoneted. Another German patrol approached across the sand dunes, and the group was forced to swim out to the boat, leaving its weapons behind. The group that landed at Hardelot penetrated several hundred yards inland and returned to its boat without meeting any Germans. The men that landed at Berck discovered a seaplane anchorage, but it was too heavily defended for them to risk an attack. The final group landed at Stella Plage under the command of Todd. It encountered a German patrol, and in the short exchange of fire that followed, 1 man was slightly wounded. After the raiders returned to England, the Ministry of Information issued a communique. Naval and military raiders, in cooperation with the RAF, carried out successful reconnaissance of the enemy coastline. Landings were effected at a number of points and contacts made with German troops. Casualties were inflicted on the enemy, but no British casualties occurred, and much useful information was obtained. Koller met with mixed success. 2 German sentries were killed, and their only casualty was Lieutenant Colonel Dudley Clark, along with an observer who received a slight wound at Stella Plage. Despite the limited success of the first commando operation, within a year Adolf Hitler, when talking about the commandos, referred to them as terror and sabotage troops, who, he said, acted outside of the Geneva Convention. The German propaganda machine called them murderous thugs and cutthroats, who killed soldiers and civilians indiscriminately, preferring to murder their enemies rather than take prisoners. If you found the information in this video informative, please feel free to give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much for watching and listening.